Ethan Boys Alarms here, and today we're going to be talking about the basics of a conventional fire alarm system. I'm going to talk a tiny bit about addressable systems as well, but I'm going to be focusing this video on conventional fire alarm systems. So if you're just starting out, this is the video to watch. Alright, to get started, let's talk about some of the basic terms that you're going to need to know. First, we're going to look at what an initiating device is. An initiating device is a device that will activate a fire alarm system. So, for example, a pull station, or a smoke detector, or a heat detector. Those are the initiating devices. They're just things that activate the fire alarm system. And there are multiple categories of initiating devices. There's manual, which is basically your pull stations. And then there's automatic, which are your smoke detectors, heat detectors. So, yep, that's initiating devices. And then alongside that, there's initiating device circuits, also known as zones, which on the panel are right here, that connect up to an initiating device. And basically, where is my... So on a fire alarm system, zones or initiating device circuits are very, very simple. All it's looking for is a short circuit across the zone terminals, like this. And what that does is that basically tells the system that there is an alarm there and that something like a pull station's been pulled. And that's all this is. Inside of a pull station, there's just a switch. And this switch, all it does is it just shorts out these two here, which is completely safe. It is just contact closure. It's not like shorting things and going to cause sparks or anything. It's completely safe. It's intended and all that. So yeah, that is how initiating device circuits work. And along with that, some devices such as smoke detectors also change their power draw. And that can also tell the system that there's an alarm. So that's what most two-wire smoke detectors do, for example. When it is in alarm, it's drawing more power, so the panel can detect that. Yep, and then with four-wire detectors, it's just a relay. So basically, same thing. It's like a pull station inside the smoke detector that's flipping. You can think of it like that. All right, so now, NACs and notification appliances. There's a couple types of those as well. So a notification appliance is basically your alarm device. So, for example, the system sensor mask right here. And these have the job of notifying occupants of an alarm condition. So these are also split into two categories, audible and visual. In the audible category, you're going to have horns and speakers. And in the visual category, you're going to have strobes and in some older applications, lights as well. And depending on systems, some can even have like LCD displays and stuff like that. And but those are the two categories, audible and visual. Their job is to notify occupants. Now, the way that a notification appliance is activated is with a notification appliance circuit on a fire alarm control panel. So that's where these are right here. There's nothing wired in. That's why nothing actually went off, because there are no notification appliances wired into the panel at the moment. So the way that this works here, there's multiple ways that this can work. Newer panels are going to have it so that way when the system is normal, there's still being powered. There's still power going through the NAC terminals, but it's not enough to actually set off an alarm. But then when there's an alarm condition, it sends a lot of power. The reason it does that is because it needs to supervise these circuits. I'll get into that in a moment as well. But yeah, so, and when it sends the power through, the alarm activates. So, yep. And older panels as well will have reverse polarity instead. So when the system is normal, it's actually sending positive through that negative terminal instead of negative. And then it reverses the polarity. So that negative actually matches. And that is what sets off the alarm. So these don't go off if the polarity is incorrect. But again, that is usually with older systems. All right, the next thing I'm going to take a look at are relays, which are these two things right here on the panel. So relays are a more advanced thing here, and your use cases are going to definitely depend for sure. But in short, they are little switches that activate when a certain condition is met. So in this panel, for example, this relay right here activates whenever there's a trouble condition. So you can wire it so that way, for example, uh, it closes the connection between these two when there is no troubles. So that way you can have basically like an LED down here on this key switch, for example, that basically says all clear. But then when when there is a trouble condition and this relay flips, it'll switch whether or not these are connected or not, and basically turn off that LED. So yeah, relays are definitely more of an advanced thing, but they're still a pretty simple concept to understand. They're basically just electronic switches, where basically it's like an automatic pulsation. You can think of it like. Next, we have auxiliary power. So now this is generally just 24 volts DC being supplied by the fire alarm control panel, like right here, for example. That is where they are. And it's basically just standard 24 volts DC just being supplied by the fire alarm control panel. In some cases, this power will go off when the system is resetting. In other cases, it won't. And it'll rely on a relay if you need to do like 4-wire detector stuff, which is actually with this panel what we got. So this auxiliary power does not turn off when the system resets. So what you'd have to do is kind of put it into one of these relays and program it as a 4-wire detector relay, which will switch off and when you're resetting. And so yeah, that's basically what you'd have to do with some panels. But with others, it does automatically just turn off the power to the auxiliary power when the system is resetting. That's basically all there is to auxiliary power. All right, so now let's take a look at the actual fire alarm control panel for a second here. So we're going to talk about some of the terms that you're going to see on here. So first, system normal. That is a really good thing to see. That means everything is all good, everything is normal. Now, of course, it's not going to be like this with all fire alarm panels. For example, on the 4001, there is no system normal thing or indicator or whatsoever. System normal is just indicated by only the green power LED being on and nothing else. But with some panels, like this one that has an LCD display, it'll say system normal. All right, next, fire alarm. This should be pretty simple here. It's basically whenever there's a fire alarm in the system. So like a pulsation here that's been pulled, you can see that it goes on. Yeah. All right, so now that button that you saw me press is called alarm acknowledge. Now some panels are only going to have one acknowledge button that does everything. Simplex panels tend to have them split up so that way there's alarm, supervisory, and trouble acknowledge and whatnot. But yeah, basically acknowledge is the process of, well, acknowledging that there is an alarm. What it generally does is it shuts up the fire alarm control panel. The fire alarm control panel will stop beeping at you, but generally it will not affect the notification appliances in any way. So pressing alarm acknowledge on this panel does not silence any notification appliances. Now, with older panels such as the 4001, it is a bit different with this panel here. The acknowledge button doesn't silence any internal buzzer because the internal sounder doesn't actually sound when there's an alarm. And for troubles, it's just a trouble silent switch. So that's all that is. But what this acknowledge button does do is it basically acts like a silence button, and it does cut the power to the notification appliances. So it does vary by panel, but this is a really old panel compared to newer panels like the 4006, and it is generally going to be where the acknowledge button just silences the internal sounder and does not affect notification appliances. And so now that's going to be the similar thing. Alarm acknowledge, supervisory, and trouble acknowledge. basically the same thing, but for their respective conditions. So alarm acknowledges a fire alarm, supervisory, and trouble, Alarm silenced, this one's super simple to understand as well. It's just when the alarm is silenced. So now audible silence here is another thing I want to talk about. That is when you silence the system, the horns shut off, but the strobes continue to flash. Generally, this is not up to code, but it is still done by collectors, and it's still okay for collectors and enthusiasts to do. But it is not something that you'd usually see in a real building nowadays because it is definitely against code, which I think is stupid, but oh well. So generally, in a building, pressing alarm silence will also shut off the strobes. And then system reset. What this does is it attempts to clear all alarms. It might fail if something can't be cleared, and returns the system to a normal state, assuming that there are no troubles or supervisories. It basically just clears any fire alarms and whatnot. So, all right, so now supervisory. What is supervisory? Its design was for water flow systems, and so supervisory would indicate that the tamper switch has been activated, and it's basically just a warning that the water flow system isn't working right. But generally with collectors and stuff, what you'll see is supervisory being used as like a general alarm or non-fire emergency. With some newer simplex panels, they have priority 2, which takes over that functionality. So there's priority 2 alongside supervisory. Just something to keep in mind, but a lot of collectors do use supervisory as a non-fire emergency system. It's not what it was designed for, but it does work. And trouble. So now trouble just means something is wrong with the fire alarm system. Whether that is something like disconnected battery or a missing smoke detector. See, I take down that smoke detector, we get smoke detector trouble. So that's basically all the trouble is. It's just a warning that something on the fire alarm system is wrong and not working as intended. All right, so now I already mentioned system supervisory, but there's another type of supervisory you got to be aware of, and that is system supervision. They are not to be confused. They are two completely different things. There is a difference between system supervisory and supervision. System supervisory, which is this, I've already mentioned it. It's basically water flow or non-emergency or non-fire emergencies. Supervision, however, is the process of monitoring connected devices on the fire alarm system. So basically, this is done with either Class A or Class B. Class B being the more common one, I believe. That's what I'm using, at least. Class B involves putting a resistor on the end of the line, and basically, if the fire alarm system isn't able to see that resistor, it's trouble. And that is actually the case with the smoke detector up here. If I take it down, the resistor that's in here, it's not seeing it anymore. So it goes into trouble. So, yep. And that applies to both NACs and zones as well. So if like I were to cut a wire going to like a NAC, for example, the resistor that would be at the end of the line wouldn't be seen by the fire alarm systems, so the system would know that something is wrong with that line. And then there's also Class A. And now Class A works differently. Instead of it being a resistor at the end of the line, it just loops right back to the fire alarm panel. So it goes from here to whatever devices it needs to go, and then there's going to be a wire at the end going back to the panel, back into this Class A input. And that is a very similar working system. It's basically checking if it can see that it's reconnected to itself. And if it does not see that it is reconnected to itself, it puts the system into trouble because it knows something is wrong. All right, so one more thing that you might see on conventional fire alarm systems is a serial bus. So this is generally used with annunciators. Now, I don't have an annunciator, so I can't show you that. As you can see, I don't have anything connected into serial bus. But annunciators generally communicate through the panel using a serial bus. And so that is what would connect up into the fire alarm panel there. All right, so now one other thing. What makes conventional systems different from addressable? Conventional fire alarm systems can only tell individual circuits apart. So up here, I have initiating device circuits. I have 10 of them. The panel is not able to differentiate between this device and this device, assuming that they are on the same initiating device circuit, which they're not in this case. But if they were, the panel wouldn't be able to tell the difference between these two. On addressable systems, there's a module inside of this. There's a module inside of this. That's communicating with the fire alarm panel like a serial bus. And it's telling the panel, yep, okay, this device is here. And it can also tell the panel, yep, this is the device that activated. So the fire alarm panel is able to tell you exactly what device activated instead of what circuit activated. But that is much more advanced. So if you're just starting out, definitely go with conventional. Addressable systems are just much more advanced. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can definitely have problems with it as well. All right, and with that, I believe I have explained everything I needed to explain. If you feel like I missed something, do let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to explain it as a reply as well. Anyways, I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel as well. I will be doing more of these types of videos here, mainly involving setup and wiring of the 4006, in the 4004, and the 4001. Soon. I'll do the 4006 first, go over setup and wiring and whatnot. But yeah, so do subscribe if you are interested in that. And I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, again, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Most of my viewers are not subscribed, so if you would consider subscribing, that would be amazing. Thank you very much as well. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, everyone. Bye.